Welcome, adventure racing friends. Today I'm speaking to a very special person, race director, my absolute favorite man in the world. And let's say welcome to Stephan Muller, race director of Expedition Africa. How are you, Stephan?
Good, thank you, Heidi.
So for those of you who might now think, why is this her most favorite race director in the world? Let me share with you that he's actually my husband. So for those of you who have not done yet one of our races, Expedition Africa, maybe would not know, but today it's going to be very interesting for me to have a conversation with my husband where we are basically sitting in two different parts of Johannesburg, and we are going to have a conversation about this race where he cannot tell me anything I don't know. So, Stephan, let's start having this conversation, and please tell our adventure racing friends in the world, where did this whole journey of adventure racing start for us?
Well, I spent many years in the military, and then I was used to the type of things out there where nobody else knows what you're doing, and I started with all the normal Ironmans and marathons and that, and then in 2000, a friend of mine, an ex-military friend of mine, phoned me and said to me, "Do I want to do this race? There's a race there in Borneo, and 4 people are interested in doing this race." And he sent me still a VHS cassette. I don't know how many people know what a VHS cassette is. I was giving away my age there. Anyway, about this race, and it was called the Eco Challenge Borneo. And eventually, long story short, we did this race. We had a great time. Came back. I met this young girl, and then I pulled a whiff on all these races. And if she liked it so much, we eventually got married. And yes, now 10 years later, we've done 10 Expedition Africas. So something like that.
Okay, well, adventure friends at home, that is the typical man, very short and sweet version of, of a lifelong relationship with adventure racing. But yeah, Stephan, we have a beautiful story. I did fall in love with this man who said to me that he's going to go to Borneo. And when he came back, we got married and we started doing this whole fun and games. First, we raced all over South Africa and also international for how many years, Stephan? More than 10 years?
Yeah, we raced 10 years. We did XPD in Australia. So yeah, we've seen quite a few bits of our country and other countries, yeah.
And from there, it just happened naturally when this man told me one day, well, let's organize an expedition race in South Africa. So to be very honest with you guys, I didn't really know at that time and point where this would go. And I thought it was just for a one-time experience. And it ended up for us going now to Expedition Africa, Lesotho next year, 2021. So absolutely a wonderful roller coaster ride of more than 10 years of racing and also then organizing. Stephan, please share with our adventure friends a little bit more about our family and the challenges of a family putting these kind of events together. What in your opinion, do you find, sort of difficult?
Well, when we used to race, we didn't have any children. So to race at that level and for so long and so many races every year, you can't really do it with a family. It was very difficult, especially if both of the man and the woman in the family is racing, not just one partner. So when we decided, basically, when the babies came, that's when we stopped racing, or trained less at a competitive level. And then actually when we changed over to starting organizing events and racing much less, eventually not racing as much at all. I think probably the biggest, there's huge advantages doing it as a couple. There's a few couples in the Adventure Racing World Series. I'm sure everybody's got their own story on it, but for me, it's the challenge is obviously the pros is obviously you can bounce ideas off each other. The negative side of it is you basically exist for, in our case, Expedition Africa, for the other organizers, their own race. but that becomes pretty much everything you talk about. So that's the negative. You don't really ever have a moment that you step away from the race. Wherever you drive, wherever you sit, wherever you have a holiday, you're looking, seeing PCs or CPs on the bush on top of a mountain, you know, your whole thing. So that's the advantage. But it also obviously consumes you totally.
Yeah, I agree. Anybody who follows us on social media will know that I always say the love affair with maps. Everywhere we go, it's always with rolls and rolls of maps. All our holidays is, you know, time spent to organize a race. Like you said, you're totally consumed. I think it is wonderful, but it's also the challenge. And it would be interesting for me to share with you guys the other challenges with the other race directors who's doing it as a couple together. And as Stephan said, yes, of course, it's a big challenge from both sides. And I might have a few other things that is also a big challenge for me, but that is Stephan's version today. Stephan, you know, like over the years, it has been 10 years. And we're going for number 10. And, you know, I'm sure you know, like I said, you've got other ideas or opinions maybe than what I do, but what was a highlight for you in the last 10 years? A real highlight you feel? I mean, I know all the races are special. And like you said, we've put so much heart and soul in all our years and all the planning and everything. But what is a few highlights for you of our journey of the last 10 years?
Well, I think the highlight, we're fortunate in our country that we have many different looking areas. And we're fortunate that we've now ventured out of our country. We're going for the third time out of the country. We've been to Swaziland, we've been to Rodriguez, now we're going to Lesotho. But even inside our country, the other 7 that was inside our country, every area looks so vastly different than other areas, where a lot of other countries might not have that advantage. So we can have host a race in different provinces or areas in our country. It looks very, very different. So that is an advantage. So the highlight, there's no specific race that is a highlight for me. They're all you know, from starting from nothing till the completion was great. Little bit hiccups here and there. But I would say the highlight for me is if we can meet the expectations of a team that has paid us money to come and have an experience in wherever we say they must. So they trust us to come and have an experience where we advertised. And then when I cross the finish line or when I drop them off at the airport, I can see that they've achieved those goals. It hasn't always happened. There's some teams who obviously wasn't always happy with certain things. That's just life. But that's probably my highlight. For every moment I could greet a team at the end of a race, and I can see in their body language, in their eyes and their spirit, that what we set out and what we promised to do, we've achieved that. That is my highlight multiple times over multiple years. If we can get that right, we'll be here for many years to come still.
So by listening to what you said and what I feel in my heart, I think we always said together that we strive for an ultimate event. And that is, how do you see an ultimate event in your eyes? I mean, linking it to what you just said, I mean, we want our teams to go back home with a spark in their eyes and like a special heartbeat, you know, that they really felt this race. But how do you achieve that? I mean, and this is maybe important to us and maybe good to share with other race directors and other people around the world. What is our philosophy? So how do you put that together?
I think our approach to what we do is a total experience. We want to offer these teams a total experience. So from the day that you send out our first email and we reply, hopefully within the first hour, the whole online registration, you know, the whole experience, shooting the promo video, putting it out there, going on scouting, making it an adventure, but also an experience, showing them what they're going to do. So we pick them up at the airport, obviously the whole race, the route. There isn't one aspect that we focus on. We're just not really about the route or about a certain aspect of adventure racing. We have these teams in the world and in our own country that want to live this lifestyle of going into the unknown, seeing things that very few people see, obviously going through tremendous lows and obviously highs, and something you can't really explain to someone who haven't been there. But we have these people, you know, fortunately, we have these people in the world that want to do this stuff. And we are fortunately in that position that we have been able to offer these experiences. So I think if we can create that experience, putting every little aspect from where do I get your luggage to, what is the best mountain bike route, or whatever it takes. And we don't always get it right, obviously. We always can do it, obviously, better. And then when the race is finished, you can always say, oh, I could have changed this, I could have changed this. And so a lot of retrospection in that aspect. But I think that total experience, if we can offer that total experience where when you leave, you are totally satisfied with every aspect of the race. That is, I think, both of us, that's what we strive for. And I think if we can get that right, then that's the main motivator.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. We keep on saying that, and we're believing in that, and we hope we can keep on providing that to our clients. Ultimately, the teams are your client, and like you said, from the first message to the last message, that is how we try to sort of grow our business, and keep on giving them. There's always a beautiful saying you've got, and that is that you are as good as your last race. And that is always the message I try to say to everybody else, is that every year it's a complete new slate. You start completely new, and all the effort and love must go into that event to make it as good as the previous one. You can't just sit back and think it is now done. We've done so many races. Stephan, going forward, to explain to our friends at home, like, how do you start approaching a new country, and how does it start? Like, the whole feeling behind these conversations is to get to know more of the race directors, and also to show a little bit more of what did they go through to put these events together. So where does it start? And, like I said, when you start with the maps and when you start with a new area, unlike an Ironman or any other mountain bike race, which is normally a lot of these races, you go back to the same areas, same clients, same sponsors. Where with adventure racing, it's always completely new, and that gives a new set of challenges every year.
Yeah, so basically we do start scratch every time. We have some of our smaller events or weekend races where we have obviously revisited areas where we do Expedition Africa. Then obviously we know how easy that is, from who do you know. It's always hard in ways, but it's much easier if you know the people. But every area we've done, it's brand new. And brand new contacts, brand new things. So it all starts with a point of contact. So somewhere in the beginning, maybe more from our side, but maybe later as the race becomes a little bit more well-known, they reach out to us. That's obviously always the best if we can get that right. But we create a point of contact. Either someone contact us or we contact them. And then we start looking at all the factors of do they have. I think that the big advantage in our own country is that the 10 years that we race competitively, we did an average of 10 races a year. At those days, there were many more organizers in the country, and we did anything from 100 to 500, 600 kilometer races. But at least 8 to 10 races a year for 10 years. So there's very few mountains, rivers, beaches in South Africa, wherever, that we haven't actually been ourselves. So that makes it quite easy to sort of know, I want to go to the area and I know sort of the rivers and I know what is possible and where's good spots and bad spots and so on. So I think once you got that knowledge behind you of your own country, it makes it easier. So we have a few places we haven't visited yet, not many in South Africa, brand new places. So obviously we always work 3-4 years ahead and sort of start identifying, and the idea would be is to do one in the country, then one outside, and that's what we've pretty much been doing the last 3-4 years. And then we have a few more Southern African countries we'd be busy contacting, but Africa is a ever-changing continent, so it gives us more challenges than might be at other continents. You can't really say what's going to happen in 12 to 24 months. So it's Africa. So basically, starting from there, then building it up right through till eventually getting the people arriving, getting a host resort, getting hopefully any sort of partners or sponsors, and luckily we've been fortunate that we have built up a base of pretty much everything we need to host an event. So basically we have over 100 kayaks, we have the vehicles, the trailers, the trucks, the staff. So we can host an event basically out of our own cost without any sort of outside assistance anywhere in Southern Africa. and that without renting or relying on anybody. So that is definitely an advantage, but obviously it takes time and money for that investment to realize. Yeah.
So Stephan, as we know at this point where, 2020, had to move to 2021, we've, many years back, I can share it with our friends at home, we did look at Lesotho earlier years, but we felt that we were not ready yet. It's and you can tell them now more about it, like it is a very remote country, high mountains, for those people who know Lesotho. At that point, we weren't maybe strong enough, meaning with our infrastructure, to handle an event there and logistics. And we, the circle sort of completed itself, that it sort of came back to us and we got a door opening for us for Lesotho. So let's go into the conversation about how did Lesotho come about? Why do you feel we are now ready for Lesotho? And yeah, let's start talking about telling our friends more about Lesotho, and it's also called the Kingdom in the Sky. And yeah, tell us more, Stephan.
Yeah, look, Lesotho is an extremely interesting country, right in the middle of South Africa. South Africa borders all the borders, encircles it. It's got a very big intertwined history of South Africa. It's all on our website if you want to read more about the country itself. But we did a few races in Lesotho as when we raced. And then obviously just traveling, with motorbikes and stuff in that area also. But when we looked at it, I think the first time was 2015. We didn't have the infrastructural capacity to do it ourselves there without a partner, and other opportunities arose. So we always, Ray Bouwa was in there in 1997. Everybody knows that iconic horse riding photos right through Lesotho. So it always was in our mind, but we just had to get to the right infrastructural and financial position to sort of take that risk to host a race so remotely. So it was just a matter of time, and then obviously after the huge success of Rodriguez, being an island race, being tropical, being sort of flat, but not so flat, but highest point being 100 meters, Lesotho was an obvious choice for us, and we knew that in South Africa and also internationally, people will come. It's one of those places, and I think maybe now that we have another extra 12 months, more people might come, because it's one of those. Another thing about our races, the chances of ever racing an expedition ever again in Lesotho, not going to happen maybe in 10 years' time. So if you ever wanted to see Lesotho, you'll only have one chance. Not that we're going back there in a hurry. So also, if you look at our teams that has entered, so you can see it. So we have 50 teams at the moment. We don't really have a limit on teams because of the way the race is structured. We have enough infrastructure for that. And we have about nearly 50 international teams and a balanced South African teams. And what's the most exciting about for us personally, and I think just for the racing community, is the quality of teams that's coming. So if you look at all the continents of Africa, we have a lot of young up-and-coming teams that's very, very strong. But our sort of most famous teams, the Cyanosis and the medalists on the line, with good team members, so they'll definitely be there. I mean, they had good results in the last few years. Also, Cyanosis went to Eco Challenge. France, they got top team in France, top team in the world, 400 Naturix, after Seagate, they here. Uruguay's top team for the first time they're coming. Switzerland, we got their Power Bar, the top team there's coming. Australia, they got the Thunderbolt top team there. So and armed forces from Sweden's coming. So definitely that pointy end of the race is going to be, they're going to hurt each other in the front there. And if anybody else they want to be hurt from the front teams, come join the fun. But other than that, so that is basically Lesotho there. It's a given for adventure, and Lesotho is a it's not nothing to do with us. It's just we're just fortunate to have a country like that close to us. But it's a living canvas. It's a living country. It's a country that every day you have to live hard to make it work there. It's up in the mountains there. Where we race, we're very far away from all the big cities. We're all in the mountains, and you will the interaction of the locals and the Lesotho life. I think every person, doesn't matter where they come from, when they return after these 7 days back home, they'll appreciate even more after having the COVID coming through. But they will appreciate every little thing they have in their own home country or house or whatever they have, because that's real living what you're going to see there. So yeah, it's a very interesting place.
No, I know, of course, it's going to be a humbling experience. I know what they're going to get, and I know by listening to you that you know, it's like you say, the experience and the people, and yeah, the front guys is going to hurt. Yeah, it's just obviously a true love for Lesotho and nature. Stephan, let's go back to the all the pointers of this event, and let's explain to our teams what's going to happen. They're going to fly in the international teams and where they're going to go, and to take us through the steps of this whole event of Expedition Africa.
Okay, so all the local South African teams will obviously get to Lesotho by vehicle. Our host resort is Afri-Ski Mountain Resort, which is actually a ski resort. For those that don't know, there's actually a ski resort in Africa. They're only open 2-3 months of the year, which is quite sad at the moment, because this where we are now, it's our sort of winter. There is snow in that area now, although they make the snow. There's not snow all over. There's only the ski slope is full of snow. So unfortunately for the resort, it financially must be a very hard time for them. And our thoughts go out to them that their 2-3 months, busy months of the year has now been taken away from them. So hopefully all the team next year buy an extra beer, buy an extra pizza every night just to make up for this. Yeah, hopefully it can help. But anyway, that's our resort. So the international teams will fly into Johannesburg International, Oliver Tambo International, and then we'll bus them out to Lesotho. It's about a 5 or 6 hour trip through the border post. Up organization, you'll lay, and you'll basically in that area before you actually will get bused to the start. And the nice thing about the start is all the way down. It's under 2,000 meters, 1.5 about again. So 3 days later, after sleeping for 3-4 nights at 3,000, the altitude won't affect at all. I mean, I'll be very surprised if like any effect will be left. After our experiences in India with altitude, I think we've got sort of idea of what works and what doesn't work. But there's always a first. But anyway, so basically, we try to incorporate, I mean, all race directors do that naturally in where they are. So we will incorporate the area, try and work on the culture and what's important is. So Lesotho is basically, before the tar roads were built, which only were built in the last 2-3 years across the country, which goes over the mountains, all dirt road, and basically horse and pony trails and donkey trails. So all their supplies were coming by horseback. Now they got obviously motorized transport, but from those two or three roads that goes through the country, everything goes on a horse or donkey back into the middle parts where the people are living. So that you'll see that donkey and horse is vital to the existence. So that is where we're starting with. We're starting with a donkey, one donkey per team, because we don't really want to. We can ride a donkey, but it's a quite slow process. The one donkey per team, and you'll be pulling the donkey. Hopefully, you'll get a nice donkey that you don't have to pull him too hard. Yes. Anyway, so we'll do an activity with a donkey. It's about 5-6 kilometers. Keep it busy for an hour or so. A lot of local interaction with the children in the villages, visiting all the places. So I think that will make a lot of fun. Very good for photography. Our video crew will love it. International journals will love it, and obviously teams will. It's the highlight. Then we do the horse riding. So we obviously animals, and we look at the history of adventure racing coming from Red Goa right through to Eco Challenge, and then not so much an ARWS series, but limited. Obviously, animals have been used much more, and obviously the people got different feelings on animals, of should you race with animals, from an animal cruelty point of view, and the whole thing like that. So obviously, it is debate out there. So the horse riding is not long. It's 5-6 kilometers, enough for you to experience it. Every person gets a horse. It's more like a pony. It's not a huge horse. It's a smallish horse.
That's big enough.
A guide with you. Yeah, there's a guide on horseback also. So you basically be a group of 5 to control it. So if you're a good horse rider, you can gallop and do what you do. If you're not a good horse rider, you'll just walk that section, or you can even, if you're really not good, you can walk next to the horse and pull it. But it is quite mountainous, and you get the feeling for it. And then basically, after those 2 activities, you'll move into the traditional adventure racing disciplines of trek and cycling, and obviously kayaking.
Okay, so Stephan, let me just go a little bit back. So to the friends at home who's listening, he's making it sound so easy, but I can tell you now, make sure that somebody in your team is either a donkey and a horse whisperer. Because if that donkey decides it's not his day, please be aware that it might bring out the worst in your personality, especially if you're a very competitive team. because I promise you, we've been several times now to Lesotho, and we've been on the donkey ride. We've been taking the kids on the donkeys. And if you follow us in the next few months if we go back for more scoutings, you will definitely see more interaction with the donkeys. I promise you, don't take this section for granted. Even, I don't know if you need to bring some extra sweets or something with you to lure that donkey, but I promise you that there's absolutely nothing in the world you can do if that donkey doesn't want to move. And please don't come and shout at us at the race organizer. I'll make sure I'm going to hide away because that donkey might just decide it's not his day for walking. But we'll try our best to get friendly donkeys and speak nicely to them. It's going to be absolutely beautiful, as I can cover it a little bit more in for Stephan. And of course, the horses, don't be fooled and think they call it a Basotho donkey or a Basotho horse. Don't think it is not a normal big horse. They are more of a wild horse. And for those of you who are not comfortable with horse riding, do go and maybe add in a little bit of a horse riding session or two. But as Stephan said, it is not so far. You can obviously pull the horse along or run next to it for that section. That is absolutely incredible start of this adventure. So Stephan, obviously I know in my head then is what is waiting for the teams. If you would like to, you don't have to share with them all the legs. Some of the other race directors just gave them a bit of a feeling of what's to come. But, just give us an idea of what is there lying ahead between the trekking and the mountain biking. What can they expect?
Well, on this race, I remember my first ever adventure race was in Borneo Eco Challenge, and we had one mountain bike leg. It was like 250. It took us like 2 days or 3 days to finish it through the mud. But in this race, we also have only one mountain bike leg. That's well over 200 kilometers. But there's nothing like Fiji. So it's all rideable, a little bit pushing here and a little bit there. But it's mostly rideable on horse trails and on jeep tracks and that type of thing. But it's a line race. So basically, we finish at Afriski, where we registered and we do all the administration. But we take you to the other side of the country. So you're basically crossing the whole of Lesotho. And it's very straight in that way. So there's no circles. We're going straight. I mean, I could really put no control point in Lesotho and just put transitions. Physically, I could do that. And it's nothing to do with us. It's just the way they built Lesotho. You see when you're there that you don't need control points. It's not mean that navigation is easy.
Yeah.
You have to.
I just wanted to ask that for you, like bring in the navigation part of this race, because there's definitely a difference between the African kind of navigation than maybe a more developed country navigation and an expedition race. So maybe just share a little bit more on the navigation with us.
Yeah. So I know that like maps is obviously a very important part for organizers and for races and so on. And there's different viewpoints on maps and so on. We try, with our experience in Rodriguez, where we had to make the maps from scratch, and in India, which is just difficult to get maps and so on. I personally like to use the maps of the country that is close to the country. That gives you a much more authentic experience of real expedition. That is not every path is on there. And so Lesotho, our maps are 1965 maps that were drawn with the help of the British government. We use the same maps. I've walked every meter on that map. There's a couple of roads. Now, all the roads are there, but there's not many roads. It doesn't really matter much. But the rivers and the mountains, the topography of Lesotho is so big. Big canyons, big mountains, that you don't actually need roads. You just have to follow that. You'll find 10 other roads that you don't actually need on the map. So I kept that in that way. Not to say that the maps are bad. For me, I love the maps like these because you can really start interpreting the maps if you're a good navigator where instead of going, okay, 1 kilometer turn right, 2 kilometers turn left, big tree on the right, that type of maps, it's great if you have it, but it doesn't really work in Africa. I don't think it's authentic to Africa. These maps is what you need for adventure racing, and if you use your rivers, your canyons, your mountains, you're going to have a ball of a time. But there is obviously a control points. I think if we have 20 or 30, I can't remember now, but it was a while ago that I planned it. But I mean, 20 or 30 control points, but like I said, I could have taken most of them out. It's just such a different, unique experience. It's never to be repeated. We'll never have that type of country again where we can. There is very few of those countries left in the world that is so open. No fences, no off-road, no off-limit areas. Anywhere you want to go, other than obviously just paying respect to the homeowners and the local population, and going with courtesy through their villages and towns and stuff. You basically can, the country's a canvas for you to explore.
I think it's also interesting, teams, that we've called some of the trekking lakes, we've called it the canyon lake, or we've called it the village lake. And the reason for that was, in the village lake, you're going to basically go, I'm not sure how far it was, that lake, maybe 40, 50 kilometers, I'm not sure, Stephan, but it is just you pass villages and on villages and villages where they've just, the road leads to nowhere. So there's not a lot of people. They don't really see a lot of foreign people in that village. And it's rural. It's, it's absolutely beautiful. And then you get the mountain, the higher altitude mountain lake, which we will get to that point now, where, Stephan, I think it's very important to mention to the teams about the weather in Lesotho. So I think we've covered now the start of the event and how it's going to roll. I think, teams, now it's absolutely beautiful villages, and it's going to be a little bit higher altitude. You're going to come down, you go up again. Stephan, when we speak about this altitude and when we speak about the weather, just give our teams a little bit more information about what to be ready for, to prepare as special gear, and what to expect.
Yeah, look, the highest we're going to is 3,000 meters during the race. And again, I don't think altitude will be a major issue. By the time you get there, you would have been 6-7 days in Lesotho already, and you would have slept at that high altitude, higher than you actually would go in the race. You'll finish at your highest altitude. But yes, the weather. So Lesotho is very interesting. It's sad that we don't go there in the raining season. So December, January, February, because the rafting it's not big rivers. It's not deep rivers. I mean, it's big rivers, not deep rivers.
Yeah.
You can raft. You can pack raft. The pack rafting, only problem is it won't last long because of the thorn bushes. But there's a lot of that. But the problem is in the raining season in Lesotho, firstly, we won't be able to get anywhere from a logistic point of view. Yeah. The mountain is one big, I don't know what the word is. It's like not a swamp, but it's basically wet. Wherever you walk, your foot will be in water. So it's not a pleasant experience. Doesn't matter if it's a little bit warmer in summer. And the reason we chose April is before the cold really starts, but it is a bit drier. The dams are on the fullest, the rivers are on their fullest. But the thing is, in Lesotho, pretty much all over Africa, you can only really paddle most rivers when it rains hard. It's not a river that always runs because they've got glaciers somewhere that's feeding them. So we're not doing any river paddling. It's just not, the chance of it, you have to cancel it. It's very likely. So the paddling is on a large dam, which is an experience of note also, because there's very few of those type of dams in the world in that setting. But the altitude at 3,000, I mean, me and you basically, we did that hike, we called it the mountain hike. We got caught up there in a thunderstorm in December. That's one of the reasons I'm lucky we're not doing it in that time. It was a harrowing experience. With our little tent with all our emergency gear. So this year we won't skip on emergency stuff. We will do stuff, and if you don't have it, you'll have it because you'll have a problem. So you won't have those sort of thunderstorm things, but you will obviously, actually on this year where the race was supposed to be, they had one day of snow, which was on that Tuesday night, and that would have been the night where the top teams would have hit that mountain trek. Yeah. So it would have been interesting. So it's nothing that you haven't seen before for European teams, or even our teams have been to India. I mean, if you got the right equipment, you got a tent if really something goes bad, and also you're going up. So if you have a problem, you'll just go down and maybe reroute that mountain to a different route, or or if you have run it, obviously you can always come down. It will be better on a low altitude. So I don't think it's a dangerous experience, but you'll have to have all the equipment, your layers, all the things. So prepare yourself for minus degrees, definitely. One of those nights, there might not snow in April because it's not even. The snow really only starts in June, July. That is actually when it starts. And if it snows in Lesotho, it snows for meters and meters, and it keeps on snowing for days and days. It snows a couple of hours, and then, but the temperature and the wind obviously makes it quite cold. So be definitely prepared for cold temperatures. And then during the day, 15, 16, 20 degrees, low altitude, yeah, you'll run with a short and a t-shirt, yeah.
But I do think we need to mention to our teams out there, Lesotho, the weather is like, it can change in 12 hours to all the seasons. And I think that is what you're trying to say, that it can be today sunny and you can burn yourself to pieces, but the ice cold wind, and then the next moment within an hour, a sleet rain will come from the front. So just be prepared for all kinds of weather, and we will focus on that again. So Stephan, you mentioned to us as flat water paddling, we are providing the teams with the boats. We're going to be strict about the gear for going into the mountains. I think by now the teams would have gathered it is it's a different race than Rodriguez, because Lesotho is a different country and it is long legs. It's more your back to sort of, I want to say, like, you know, our roots kind of thing, and all expedition kind of legs. Racing, and that is what Lesotho is providing us, and there's many reasons for that as well, because I think we need to just touch base on that, of the logistical part, which is so difficult and so hard to go around for the gear and to sort of service the event and the teams. While we're busy with that, Stephan, any other special gear the teams will need to have? Do you plan or thinking of having a rope section in this race?
The thing is with Lesotho and the rope section is, and obviously we always have a rope section. Rodriguez last year we had 3 or 4 rope sections. And another thing is about that whole thing about legs and amount and routes and CP points, and that is, we don't have a system. It's not we don't have a system that we like lots of legs or less little legs or a lot of CPs. It's pretty much where do we go? We see where we go. We look at the area and say, okay, what works? In Rodriguez, for example, we had 38 legs with 120 control points. Now, in the same distance, a little bit longer in Lesotho, we have 6 basic legs, you know, where there's real distance in, and with less than 50 control points, because that is what the area does. And it's very important with the route, when you work out the route, is that we try to do it, that every leg must be different. So for us to do a trek through the mountains, which is exactly the same sort of feeling and look to it, but we have 3 of those treks. It's silly, because you're going to do 3 of exactly the same thing. Also with clothing in it, if you have multiple transitions, multiple legs, you have to have multiple amount of clothing. So if you go in the mountain once and you get wet once, you know, you need less of that type of gear. So I think in Lesotho, a longer legs definitely better suited. So you can sleep well and stock up well, although every 2 kilometers in daylight, you'll find a little shop or something to buy. And so, you know, that's what I'm saying. That is quite important. And then there's no special gear. And with the rope work, what we said about rope work is that the scale in Lesotho, if you want to do an abseil, for example, if you want to do an abseil, you have to do 200 meters plus. And that in adventure racing, very rarely going to come off well, because there will be a long queue. Doesn't matter where you put it. I mean, you're going to be 2 hours per team per rope. It's just not practical. Also, the way our race is geared is more bigger, sort of that type of, in the beginning of the race and at the end of the race. So we don't have a rope section. If we put a rope section, it will be an afterthought. And we know that all race organizers these days are moving towards ropes are good, but it must make sense. Everybody knows that. That's quite a common, you know, everybody accepted that over the years now. So there's no rope work section. If I put a 50-meter abseil in, or like in Rodriguez, we had a 70, or in Rodriguez, in the Macqualand, we had a 70-meter abseil. That was the highest mountain in the whole province nearly. And that made a lot of sense. If I put a 70-meter abseil in Lesotho, you'd have a little cliff on a 2,000-meter cliff face, and I do 100 meters. It just looks silly. It doesn't work. So yes, with no rope work, that's gonna do Lesotho justice.
Yeah.
At this moment, yeah.
Stephan, anything special, lastly, to sort of include for our teams for Lesotho? I mean, I know what's special in my heart about this race. For you, is there anything special you would like to include? Why is Lesotho, and why must I come and do Expedition Africa? Not only it's our 10th edition, to celebrate it with us, but what is special on this race?
I think the main difference is at the end of the event, and I might be wrong, we'll see, we'll ask the people at the end, is the way you're going to traverse the country on bike, on foot, in a kayak, will not be important at all. Where normally you remember that specific, I got on a boat and I paddled there and so on, because what's passing around you and what's going on around you, I think will fill up your senses. That you will understand. If I come over in the right way, there's so many things will happen left and right of you as you use these three modes of transport. That what's going on around you will become more important than actually the activity you do. You'll remember more what you saw when you were cycling than actually the cycling. The same with the other disciplines, and it's very rarely that you get an area like that where surroundings in somehow becomes more important as the disciplines, because it's just astounding how the people live there, and there is actually countries like that, and the people living they're pretty living in 100% harmony with nature. Most of those villages don't have power, don't have water, and they're flourishing. They're flourishing, they're happy, they're smiling, they got their own food, they got plenty of water. They just, I mean, that is probably where we also strive for, to be totally self-efficient from Mother Nature and be actually quite content with it.
Yeah.
So it's a big lesson for all of us, or for people who always, trying to accumulate material stuff, or if that's important for you. So I think that is the special thing of Lesotho, which and again, there's nothing to do with us. It's just Lesotho is Lesotho. It's a living country. It's a ever developing, fast moving, day by hour animal. So yes, it is really. I mean, I'm not trying to promote our race or Lesotho, but it is very different than anything we've ever been to before, for most people.
Yeah. Well, adventure friends, I can continue speaking with Stephan, of course, for hours. We're having these discussions daily. I think from my side, it's true that Stephan say we live it and we dream it. As a race director, I lay awake at night worrying about if our teams are happy, if we give them what they needed, that we fill their souls. Was it a deeper meaning for them, this event? Like Stephan said, I think it's such a long journey for everybody to get to the point where we actually go to a race. It's kind of like for a woman who's getting married, I think. If I want to bring them, you always see all these girls, and then, you're getting engaged, and there's a whole year and all the excitement, and then it's your wedding day. And for me, that is how I see an adventure race. It's a year of planning, commitment, time away from your family and your children and work, and how to juggle this life. And I mean, if I speak to the adventure racers around the world, everybody's got this struggle just to keep it all together. And then when you get to the race, to really have the fulfillment and the dream of what you want it to be. So we strive to give that to you guys. We're very excited and from my side, very humble to say in a humbling way that it has been an absolutely roller coaster ride the last 20 years of our lives. And everybody, as I was speaking to all the other race directors, even though they've been organizing races for 1 year to 3 years, 5 years, doesn't really matter. They all love the lifestyle and living the adventure. We are in the fortunate position that we can go for 10 years, and it's a true blessing. And from ARWS Series side to Stephan and Heidi, we wish you all the best for Lesotho. Again, from ARWS Series side, we want to thank all our race directors for their commitment and their strive for excellence and in their events, and to make it better every year. And one last question, to you, Stephan, what would you like to share to any race director out there what do you feel is something from your experience you would like maybe to share with any other race director out in the world about your journey of adventure racing?
Well, I do think that, you know, I'm in my 50s now, so I think I've basically did follow adventure racing right from, you know, the word go from Ray Gilward time. And I do think that that ARWS series as it is now, and I think this, with all these interviews, I think people will notice it more, that we have a group of individuals and couples and people that's organizing these events, and clearly you can see they're not doing it to retire, but they love what they do. We all are extremely different. Some of us are friendly, some of them are not so friendly, some laugh a lot, some doesn't laugh, but we're all different, and that is what making the adventure racing series great. So I don't think people actually look at it much. I think, oh, race there, and maybe this year with next year with Eco Challenge and being on TV again. A lot of young people don't even know what Eco Challenge is. So that will give us a lot of coverage, and also obviously with the Ecuador and Alpha story is coming to Hollywood, hopefully in a not too distant future. People will look at ARWS series maybe with different eyes and realize that you have this group of individuals all doing it for whatever reason they're doing it, but we are different, and that is the key. If we were all the same, it would be pretty boring. So I want you more to speak to all the people who actually want to race, is go and support these people, all of us. Yeah. And all of us will have a different experience. All of us will give you things that you like or maybe not like. But that is how life works. But you have to experience everybody's race in your lifetime if you can. Go to all these countries. Doesn't matter what the outcome of a race is. And some races obviously maybe doesn't work out that year, or there's some people a bit unhappy about certain things. We have many of those circumstances ourselves. But the intention of the organizer is only good. They want to give you something that's going to knock your socks off, going to fulfill your adventure quest. And that's it. I think it's support the adventure racing organizers. I think they do it for the right reasons, all of us. And I think at the end of these series of these 10 interviews or so, you will see the different personalities, and you will go support the guys, the girls. It's a good cause to support. And it's interesting to see how different people approach, the adventure things. Anyway.
Okay.
They will.
So guys, it was an absolutely wonderful experience for me to speak to my husband. As it is a wonderful experience for me to speak to all the other race directors in the world. And Stephan touched on something very true, and that we all are different, and all the races are different, their countries are different. And the wonderful thing of those countries that's different, it creates different races. And some races are more deserty, some is more like forestry or lush, and some is more mountainous, and different cultures. So we are very excited that we can say we share with you the heartbeat of Africa. We would welcome you in Lesotho next year, but at the same time, we would welcome you if you can't travel, that you go to the other countries and other races and go and experience it and support them. All the race directors are approachable. As you can see, you can speak to Stephan, and you can have good conversations, and we all strive for excellence. So Stephan, from my side and from ARWS series side, all the best with Lesotho, and God bless. And last one. Thank you for taking me on a journey of a lifetime.
Yeah, and unfortunately not over yet.
I hope so.
Stay safe.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.